there's no. You see, I was speaking to Rachel last night, and we were speaking about what do we do if we want to make atonement in our lives, if we're looking back and we've got regret about doing something. And I said, at the end of the day, I think what we're doing now is absolutely superfluous, because we can go round and round and round and round, intellectualizing the things that we want to address. But the fact is, Paul, we are a result today of every experience that we've had hitherto, and this is what has made us what we are. And when we made these so-called mistakes that we feel guilty or regretful about now, that was because we were a certain person. We couldn't have done it any other way. No. You know what we really have to get into a level of forgiveness about and acceptance is that when we are at a certain stage in our lives, Paul, and we act in a certain way, it's because we're acting from all of the information that we've been given and privy to at that particular time. And if we had other information, then we would have acted differently. But we didn't. We can only ever have the information we've got at one time. So therefore, that absolutely must dictate how we're going to act. Because you cannot lend yourself to thinking that if you applied a more of a rational thought and then you would have done it differently. Look, if we think about something for 24 hours, then how many scenarios are we going to come up with? How many potentials are we going to come up with? How much pros and cons are we going to come up with? Oh, well, what if I do this? Oh, well, if I do this, then that might affect that person. Okay, well, what if I do this? Well, if you do that, then that's going to affect that person. You know, you got this butterfly effect thing going on.
Let me do an analogy. Let me just put this in perspective, because it's something I was thinking about for weeks. This will actually fit in good. So, can you imagine if you was like 12 years of age and I was, and we lived in a mining community, and our dad was in a mine. He used to go down the mine, and we went, and he used to go, come into the pub with us, and we sat there, and we see our dads with slightly black faces and our granddads with really black faces. That's your reality, isn't it? Then all of a sudden you'll go, oh, you'll be going down the pit next, this, that, and the other. So what I'm saying is, then all of a sudden you get like you get all these problems with all your body fucking knackered out when you're about 30, 40 years of age. Did you have a choice at that time? Did they have a choice but to show you their reality? Like you just said, it's that complex, this journey, that the amount of mistakes we make, and we do good things and bad things. But like you said, you can't go back and atone for things that, like you say, only the operating system at that time could have understood it at that level. It's impossible.
Yeah, and I'm very sceptical about any real level of free will. And so if you look at your scenario now and ask yourself, well, how could you have done yesterday different? How could you have done the day before different? You could probably get out of bed a bit later, Paul, or a bit earlier. You could have probably gone for a bit of a walk, or you could probably have cooked something particular for food. But every day, due to your circumstances, is going to be much the muchness, isn't it? And that is dictated by your mindset at this particular time. I say to you, so how are you feeling these days? And you're going, oh, I'll be all right in a few months or something. And so what you're inferring is that your life at this moment in time is completely and entirely governed by your state of mind, which you don't have any control over. Because when we say, do you have any control over it? Well, that is you. And so it's a ridiculous, paradoxical question, because well, what are you going to do about this and that? Well, I am a collection of everything that I've experienced, and just because I can cognize this, just because I can rationalize it, doesn't mean to say I can fucking change it.
Yeah, it's almost like a trade-off. By understanding how this paradigm works, it can open up many opportunities or narrow down opportunities in context, because understanding it is also, it gives you, like you say, the greatest gift and can give you the greatest curse, as in like understanding how it all works. So like you said, do we then become the sum of our thoughts or the sum of our actions? Are they intertwined? And like you said, we've got no, like I say, have you got any free will in the position where you are? as a case of the position I'm at? Is it a case of it's just where it is at this time? Who knows?
There's no free will outside of the experiences that we've had. You see, the thing is that people don't understand about this free will is they think that, oh, if you raise your right hand, then you've got free will. If I decide that I want to go to the shop and buy a bar of chocolate in an hour's time, oh, I've got free will. But what is actually happening? Why is it that I have a thought of buying a bar of chocolate? Because there's something within me, my body's physiology, that craves chocolate. The craving in the body tells the mind, oh, I feel like chocolate now. And so then the mind is rational, and it's kind of like, oh, well, I don't have it in the house, but there's a shop up the road I can go to. It's only 5 minutes away. And so you can say that, well, that's your free will. I'll say that it isn't your free will, because it's all born out of your physiology. It's born out of your experience hitherto, and so you don't actually have any say. You think you do, because we've got this mind that has this facility to separate itself from its deep unconscious, Paul.
Yeah, well, that's quite interesting what you're saying, because I was watching something a couple of weeks ago, so it's come back into my mind, about a guy who banged his head and lost his memory. But when he came back, he had to then relearn, like you said, did he like chocolate or didn't he like chocolate? Because that's fucking thing, that memory's gone.
Yeah.
Did he know his wife in a loving manner? No. He had to relearn, and did he like her at that? Did he like her then? This is where you can get some answers. Once you've had a bang on the head and that memory bank's wiped, and then that person returns, it just says that all we are is a kind of conglomerate of the experience. That's all it is.
Yeah, and so I remember that movie or documentary. I've seen it like a few years ago. He doesn't recognise the wife. She tells him that she's his wife, and that she loves him and he loves her. And he's kind of like, oh, okay then. He doesn't feel the love. He's just told of a scenario, and he's told that he's banged his head and he's lost his memory, and it's kind of like, all right. He doesn't have the experience bank of memory to be able to navigate. He's like a ship out on the ocean where its engine's been turned off and its rudders have all fucking bent. It hasn't got a clue. It needs somebody to come on board that knows about engines and rudders before that ship's going to be utilisable again. And so, like you say, this absolutely tells us categorically, if a man is 50 years old and his memory is wiped clean, he doesn't remember how to tie his shoelaces anymore, he doesn't remember if he likes fish anymore or anything like this, he's got to start again as a baby. And so therefore it's like a clean motherboard, isn't it? We don't know what the fuck we like, and it's kind of bizarre. It's like, what's that? Oh, that's the light. What's that?
You can't even say that. You can't even say, oh, we don't even know what we like, because that we don't like doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's almost like it literally is kind of an open field, isn't it? A possibility.
And it's bizarre, because I was just watching this conscious documentary, Paul, and what it starts off with is it says that there's two parts of the brain, as we know, there's two hemispheres, and I've done videos about this. When you cut the corpus callosum, then you've got two independently thinking brains, and this is why you've got the contradiction going on. But the reason why one always overrides the other one in an everyday healthy human being is because one can write, one can do math, but the other one can talk. So it's the right hemisphere that can, left hemisphere that can speak, and so that has the greatest autonomy when it wants to speak. You see, but this one, they're arguing amongst themselves. Shall we do this? Shall we do that? And then the one that speaks is compelled into saying something. Now, the reason why I want to speak about this is because when I was speaking with Rachel last night, and I said, look, I've said some things that were abomination, absolutely disgusting, really, in my life. I told my mother, my daughter, that I wouldn't bother if anybody died except my daughter, and so I'm inferring that I wouldn't bother at all if she died. And it's a terrible thing to say that. It's kind of like, well, we was in love and we've got a daughter and you wouldn't bother if I died. Well, it's ridiculous, and of course I would, but why did I say it, Paul? Because there's a part of me at that that particular time that was compelled to do it. Why did it want to do that? Because it wanted to hurt, maybe, or because it was hurt. You see, if we are hurt, then all we can do is give hurt out, isn't it? And
of course it is. It's transference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Until you understand transference, you're going to give it out.
Yeah, and so the video I was going to make today, it was going to be entitled something like, I cannot believe a single word I say. And the reason why I can't believe a single word I say, because there is no I for a start. All we are is a collection of fucking thoughts and experiences fighting, struggling with two actual separate consciousnesses, apparently, in the brain. Because
well, you've got about 7, you have.
Well, yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
I don't dispute that, Paul. You know, I've always said that there's at least 2, and if there's at least 2, then how can you say I? You have to say we. And if I say something,
everybody, mate, there's at least 2. Because look, how can you drive a car automatically and think what you're going to eat for tea? You can't do the 2 things. So everybody's got that at least 2, haven't they?
Yeah.
No, and then like you said. Go on, sorry, you can.
And so what I was saying is, if we say anything on any given day, then nobody should ever, ever, ever define anybody, because we really are indefinable. And the reason why we're indefinable, as opposed from yesterday to today to next week to next year, simply, Paul, because we are a different creature with every passing second and hour. Why? Because we've experienced new things which have set aside a certain opinion. They've increased the value about something. They've enabled us to finally deny or dismiss as something else. This thing is going on all the time. It's computing. And every time it's in receipt of more information, it changes the whole general outlook of what this thing is. And so therefore, if I say something one day and someone says to me, oh, you know, he's an idiot, or he's an asshole, or this, that and the other, then they're being very, very naive, because they don't realise anything about what is actually going on. And so this is why then, Rachel was saying that she wants to find atonement for friends and ex-lovers, that she wants to readdress the scenarios, because she's carrying the weight of it. And I said, well, what are you carrying the weight of it for? Because you're guilty or whatever. I said, what you got to do is, you got to realise, Rachel, that you aren't the person you're thinking about. You never were. You know, really, because it's always a fiction. Everything's a fiction. But if you think you were, and if you can say, well, of course I was, because that bloke, I had a relationship with him, this, that and the other. You didn't. The Rachel then had a relationship with him, and the Rachel now is a different one. But the only thing is, you've dragged that memory with you. You see, what happens in the brain is the brain's got the capacity within its proteins to retain memory.
Well, exactly, like I said to you, I've had a memory, a near-death experience. The memory, everything we've done is there. So why is it still there, Aaron? So you're saying you've said it, you've experienced it. It might be 10 years ago, but it's still in there. But like you said, was we responsible at the time, or is that a part and parcel of the making of the diamond, the crushing down of the pressurizing of the diamond, of the aspect that you are? Does that make sense? You have to have that pressure to create the end product. Maybe that's what it's about. Maybe these pressures and testing, you know, of all these variable aspects.
Well, I think whatever the experience is, it's all valid and it's all part of it. Just a simple, mundane walk down the road. You're gathering up information because your unconscious is absorbing the information, even though the consciousness mind isn't. And so if you walk past something that you've never seen before, and it catches your eye, then that information is stored, and your unconscious and maybe even your conscious mind is going to be trying to compute that. It's going to be trying to make some sense of that, and it's going to be befuddled. And this is why people get this uncanny feeling, because they see something, the unconscious has a recognition of it, but the conscious mind doesn't. And so therefore the unconscious mind is in dispute with the conscious mind, and it generates fear. Paul, and this is what the old uncanny valley thing's about, because when we look at a robot which looks too human, then it's too close to being human, but we know it's not, and yet our mind perceives it as being so, because it's got eyes that blink, it's got a mouth that moves, it's got fucking hair, it's got everything, and it looks like a human, but we're told it's not. We don't know, we can't fucking tear open its face and, you know, this, that and the other, but okay, we can say, well, you know, it looks 98% human or 95%.
It's a bit like meeting a woman in a nightclub then, you don't know until it's took its makeup off what it is.
Well, fucking hell, I'm telling you, know, in the morning you'll find eyelashes, nails and false hair and false bras all over the fucking place, and you'll think, well, what the fuck is this?
Maybe we've been getting ready for the Android revolution since the 60s. You know about it. So what you're saying is, I can see what you're saying. So going back to guilt, then you're talking about guilty things that apparently people are carrying like a guilt there. I mean, we all carry a guilt of some sort, and like you said, it's how you process that guilt. You either carry it, or you kind of compartmentalize it and say that it was me, it was part of me. Yeah, it's happened. I can only just say that, you know, I'll kind of more conscientious towards an experience like that again, and let it go. Let it flow. You know, because it's all into we're living in a Maya. Everything is a possibility. So you can say, well, if another person hurts another person, or fucking even just the extreme of killing another person, you can say, well, what is that about? And how can that be possible? Well, they're only in Maya. They're only destroying the external shell, aren't they? They're only destroying the body in form. You know, they're not destroying the spirit. So they've got to atone for that. You know, the operating system's going to be holding that something. You know?
Yeah. And so I spoke about you in that, how you deal with things, with your level of atonement. You know, you'll write a sigil down, or you'll write something down on a piece of paper, you'll screw it up and throw it over your shoulder, or you'll do something like this. And so I said that this is the whole thing, what people have to do. They have to find a way of dismissing it. In an instant, the worst thing we should do is to go to therapy about it, because all that's going to do is elongate it, and it's going to bring it at the forefront of your mind week after week after week. And the psychoanalyst or therapist, it's not their business to try to get a resolve on anything or heal you, because they want you fucking keep coming back. And so it's not like that you can really get a resolve on anything if you have the mental attachment to it, Paul. What you have to do is, and what I've said is, you have to become like a Buddha, in that you realize that everything's Maya anyway, so nothing carries any more weight or veracity than anything else. And so why would you want to drag something which is uncomfortable with you for the rest of your life, when there could be a million other things that you could be dragging as well? What is it about the mind that only chooses to drag some shit with it, to bring you down and make you feel guilty, this, that and the other? And I suggested it's the Catholic guilt, which has been indoctrinated in us.
Yeah, there's a lot of, especially not condemning the context of the American culture. The American culture is very deeply ingrained with the, like you said, Catholic Christian underpinning, and it's all like, it's almost wrestling with its own shadow, isn't it? It's kind of wrestling, and that's what we're going through at the moment. That's why Trump's in charge. But like you, just going back to the sigil thing, somebody made a sigil for your Wake and Brave, but you can do it the opposite way around. If you want to let something to rest, if you put it within the sigil, like you said, and set fire to it, into ashes, and throw it in a stream, it's ceremonial, it's gone. Yeah. And then it's no good thinking about it, because you've done it. And it's almost like pushing a seed in the soil, and then it's gone. And people say, well, that's denying the fact that it happened. But the fact of the matter is, like you say, how many people do you look round? You can just look round at all the people that walk through a town centre and look at everybody carrying the burdens in their faces.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
Then if they pull the photo out of them when there was 7 years of age, and look at the clear eyes and the completion. That's what you get if you don't burn it.
And so I said then, to try to shed some light on the way I feel about this, my man once levelled at me that I was quite a cold character because I have this ability to be able just to stop caring. And I said, well, it's simply because I've learnt this tool at a very young age, of course, with the death of my mother and being abandoned effectively. I've learnt how to do it, and so why shouldn't I use it? It was a very, very valuable, a very painful and very expensive lesson I've learned. But you see, what it did for me, Paul, it enabled me that to cut off things that are potentially painful. And so if I think about something and I go, oh, what a cunt I was then, or that bastard.
I know all about it, man. I've done it myself.
And so therefore, if you can have the facility just to cut it off, which lots of people, most people, they seem not to be able to do it, Paul. And I think the only reason that I can do it and you can do it is because we've had the pain. And this is why one of the greatest assets...
We're wired that way, you know?
Yeah. And one of the greatest assets to somebody awakening is because they've suffered a trauma, because it enables them to think differently and to act differently out of the herd. And it gives you more tools.
Yeah, and like you said, you've got to be very careful because, like you say, when you're actually going, it's easy. Something looks so easy from your perspective to somebody else. With that person, you've got to understand that, like you said, they could be carrying 30, 40 years of energy to get over before they can get over to that point that you're pointing out.
Yeah.
You know that each time there's an incident, or like you say, if you're that way, like I used to be, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, what I used to do, I used to go, if there was a problem, if there was pain or anything about it, I'll just go, it was like an imaginary wall at the back of my mind, I'll just throw it over. And it seemed like in the 2001-2, when my mum got ill, all these things are ill, my brain was going, that wall's coming on top of you soon, you know, that wall's coming on top of you. So the brain can play funny tricks, and it felt like the wall had come down on me. Every piece of karma back over the wall, going through, you know, like living life, going through a field, and you're spraying all the soil, and then all you're leaving is furrows without any thought, kind of almost like a focus, almost like a bizarre will-powered focus without any kind of experience left and right. And then you realise that with that, Aaron, it's kind of, the key to it is, it's like you just said going back 15 minutes ago with your, are you responsible for your words? The fact of the matter is we're all responsible for our words, but it's a case of if we're not, it's almost like if the boat goes one way and it's going the wrong direction, and we get up in the morning and say to the captain, why are you going that way? And he'll go, well, I just feel like going that way. And you'll go, well, the destination's over there. It comes down to having the reins of these crazy horses, you know, sometimes. And that's what people probably get the ump or whatever when sometimes things are said and you're not meaning anything by it, you're just saying it because it's there to be said. And somebody will go, he's not carrying responsibility for his actions.
Yeah.
Because they are, because they're caught in the they're conformed, Aaron, as opposed to the conformed being is either that or is not. You know?
Yes, and so everything is so very, very complex. And of course, we are responsible agents here now.
How did you know I was doing a sigil anyway?
Oh, well, I don't know. There's some mindfuckery going on, it seems.
Yeah, go on, mate.
But what was I saying?
You were saying about, I was saying to you about responsibility for actions.
Yeah, and so okay, I'm responsible now for how I conduct myself in this conversation, and I'll be responsible for whether I, you know, bang a saucepan on the walls, you know, incessantly, and this, that, and the other. We're all responsible for what we're doing at any given time, because we are a thinking entity, and we're a rational creature. But that doesn't mean to say, in all instances, that we're capable of avoiding doing the things we do, because many times, people, you can see with drug addicts, with sex addicts, with fitness addicts, with whatever, there's some overriding power that dominates whether you want to be more responsible, sometimes you just want to get pissed and you want to go dancing and knocking around, and you can bump into somebody, you can knock somebody over, you can end up getting into a fight and all this sort of thing. There's so many things that we can do, which...
Well, you can say that's a form of letting yourself go, isn't it? You'd say years ago, let yourself go.
Let yourself go. So therefore, then you weren't responsible then because you let yourself go. But in a court of law, they'll say, well, you're
responsible for your first drink, so you created the cause and effect to that.
Yeah, and so where does that fucking end then? I mean, does it go back 20 years? Well, you went to this archery club, so you learned how to use a bow and arrow, and then one day, because you had a bow and arrow in your house, you shot your wife with it. Yes, but I did it in a fit of rage. I was drunk at the time. God knows I didn't want to do that. Well, you obviously did because you practiced it 10 years ago. It was all practicing for this day. I don't know where you draw the line with responsibility, Paul. Everything gets so amazingly cloudy, and this is why it's such a difficult and complex world, because there's too many variables that come into play, and so nothing can ever be categorically this way or that way. Even down to the absolute fundamental basis of the universe, when you look for the energy of an atom, and it can be on a peak and it can be on a trough, and the only way we're ever going to know is if we monitor it at this exact precise time, and we can see at that exact precise time it was on a peak, and at that precise time it was on a trough. But where's it now? I don't fucking know. We don't know. We don't know until we look at it again in another instant. So it just goes to show that you can never pin anything down in out of the now. It has to be now. Are you responsible now? Are you responsible now? Are you responsible now?
Yeah, well, the now is, like you say, a state of mind, but you're still going to get these kind of floods of kind of understanding of your path through history, whether or not you could have been, like you say, responsible at that given time or not. And like you said, when you're actually in the now, isn't it funny, all those things kind of just evaporate like ice melting. They've gone. They don't exist at that time. But when you actually go into your memory bank, into your deeper subconscious, where the memories are stored, if they're in the brain or throughout the brain, wherever we tune into them. So it seems to me like we tune into the field of regret, or the field of anger, or the field of this, or the field of that. Yeah. So it's almost what field you want to reside in. It's not being not responsible for your action. Like I said to you, if you go down any high street, any town and city, do you want to carry the burdens of all these people because they'll want you to be there with them? It's a bit like my brother was he got married early, he had 2 kids, he had a house, he was all the time, he'd neck a bottle of whiskey on a Friday night and he'd watch me gliding through life, and he hated me for it. He fucking hated me for it, Aaron, where I didn't even know he'd been buried. So because he hated the fact that I didn't want that fucking energy carrying on to me, because I could see his destiny, and when you can see that destiny, you carry that feeling that they know you can see their destiny, and that's the fucking drawback, because they'll get the bows and arrows out for you for that one, you see. Yeah, because they feel that like they can't control it, and you are their conscience looking on, and of course that they just don't want you to be looking. Because they feel guilty about it, they feel resentful about it, but it seems to be beyond their control. There's an interesting quote which I was privy to tonight on this Conscious documentary, and it was from Einstein, and it said something like, the most important thing that anybody should ever learn is, which do you want to believe, whether the universe is inherently evil or inherently good? Something like this, because if you believe it's evil, then you have already paved your fate, Paul. If you believe it's inherently 100%. Good, then you've paved your fate. And so when you say
that if somebody is wanting or choosing to reside in guilt, my old man, he loved it. He loved residing in negative energy, in pessimism, in guilt, and all the rest of it. And I am the other siblings used to say to him, for fuck's sake, man, what is it with you with all this morbid shit? Why don't you start thinking about something else? Even the songs that he liked, it was all cowboy songs, you know, all about getting drunk and losing your fucking girl. And I'm like, what's wrong with you, man? You know, why can't you listen to something else? Here, some Beach Boys, you know.
He didn't want the sun to come out. He didn't want the. He didn't want the light. He was in the shade of his being, wasn't he?
And the reason why I think that is, Paul, is because he was guilty about the death of our mother and about the death of our sister, and so. Therefore, then, he wanted to punish himself, and that's what he did. And that's what he dwelled in this negative realm until, in the end, he got what he wanted, really.
He was self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
You know, he's prophesied his own demise, and as my dad did. As soon as my mum came out of hospital, he went in, and he said, I've got cancer. I said, you haven't got fucking cancer. And they tested him, you haven't got it. What's going on here? And he was playing out the play. He was playing out the reverse, and then he wouldn't accept it. He carried on doing other things, but he wouldn't get out from behind the fucking couch and realise that. It was all to do with he was carrying that heavy, big boulder of guilt, you know, and it was crushing him. And it killed him, you know. So we've been tragedy. We've seen these characters. We've lost these characters. So. The actions that you take now and the actions that I take, and people who's gone through a traumatic experience, don't think that we haven't taken anything from them experiences. It's just a case of we know these other ways, even though the other ways to other people may look like you're taking a selfish perspective of an action, but the fact of the matter is either do that or reside in that toxic waste field.
Yeah, self-preservation, you choose. So you choose whether the universe is light or whether it's dark. And you see, the beautiful thing about this is when somebody of such magnitude says that, Paul, that's a real spiritual thing to say. That's got nothing to do with physics. It's got something to do with the consciousness and nature and laws of the universe. And so when you look at that then, if it's the only thing that you know and you decide that you want to believe in, because it only is a belief system, because if you believe that it's negative, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe it's positive, then it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So therefore, there's no science in it. It's whatever your eyes are going to dictate to you due to the configuration of your mind which you've chose. And so we've chose not to dwell in the dark, and so I said to Rachel, people, you know, could consider people like me to be callous and non-caring. Oh, so you don't care about the things you did in the past. I go, look, where shall I begin? First of all, the past doesn't fucking exist. There's only ever the here now. If the past did exist, then that was a different person to what is here now, metaphorically speaking and physically speaking, because every 7 years we're completely regenerated. Am I to carry the weight of all these people that I've been in this 54 years of my life? Am I to carry the fucking weight of all that? That's not fair. I've been a million different people in this 54 years. Work it out in days, Paul, whatever it is. I stand before a court of law. Am I responsible for all those people? And the court goes, yes, you are. Fuck off. You just want things too simplistic. That's your situation, oh Lord of the fucking world. You know, because it isn't that simple, Paul. It really isn't that simple.
No, it's not simple, because like you said, how can one person carry the burdens and mistakes of other members of family? You can't do that, because it becomes such an heavy burden of destruction. It's like I can go back to where I was born, which is only 7 miles away, and I know the positions my cousins will be in without seeing them. I know where they are. They're in a state of fucking turmoil, because I remember them growing up, and I can see that there was destined to be cast into that dimension, as opposed to I've always, like you said, through experience, through a shock, I was thrown outside, and I've been able to see a different perceivable angle of this reality, which then indirectly, as you're growing up, you feel like you're an alien. You can understand the word alienated. You can understand the word kind of. Then you get classed as, like you said, are you selfish? Are you self-absorbed? Are you? Why don't you join in? Why don't you be this? Why don't you be that? What for their reflection, for their perception? And then you hold on to your beliefs. And then, like you said, we're so many years down the line, and we're, like I say, both of us are in the 50s, and we've met other people, and isn't it amazing that at this part of life, there is people out there who's gone through similar experiences where you can communicate, as opposed to 10 years ago that didn't exist. So it was for something to this point now, to being able to actually process the experience, and for you being able to then kind of, if a person's in a certain place in their lives, you can help them out. And you can give them advice,
Yeah.
And it's a frustrating job. Like somebody sent a message on one of your videos saying that you've chosen the hardest of jobs to do, because it's it's just a thankless task, isn't it?
Yeah, dealing with a human being.
It's difficult, mate. Because what happens is what I see it is, somebody does something to the universe and they expect to be rewarded for their efforts of giving to the universe, but it doesn't work that way. It seems to me that all this giving back and passing out and this, that, and the other, it's nothing to do with earth plane stuff. It's nothing to do with monetary or anything. It's to do with some perceivable, unforeseen force of energy that we can't see.
Natural law.
Natural law, and it backloads and it builds up over a period of time that you can never see the bank of karma building or
that's it's a beautiful segue into another facet of this, because this is something that you are aware of, that Mark Passio, he speaks a great deal about. He speaks about the natural laws of the universe, and there are certain things you can do and there's certain things you can't do. And even though physically you can do these things, you will pay the price, because you violated a natural law. And so if you live within the realms of the natural law, which seems to be based in love and kindness, you just look at how you feel. If all you do, all you emit every single day is loving kindness, then you don't carry no weight, you don't carry no guilt, you're as light as pie, you sleep like a baby, people will shower gifts on you, and they'll have all the time in the world. So how can that be wrong, Paul? If you lie, cuss and fuck and deceive, then you're going to get all that shit.
Well, again, we just said it, self-fulfilling prophecy. Whatever you're giving out, you're getting back.
Yeah,
it's stacking up, it's stacking up somewhere.
Yeah, the funny thing is about it is, you see, in the position that I'm in now, it's a very, very difficult one, because I don't believe in the human being, Paul. Because everything that you look into to try to discern the human being, you don't find one. And all you find is an illusion. And so this is the greatest difficulty. Like Einstein says, again, it's an illusion, but, it's a fucking persistent one.
It's a persistent one, yeah. And like you said, you can look. What do you mean? You just see an illusion? What do you mean?
Well, what I see is that there is no human being. First and foremost, then, when you look at what is Paul, you see, if I say to you, "What are you?" Then how would you define yourself?
Pretty simple. A human being.
What is a human being?
I'm being at this moment in time and space, and I experience that moment as best I can. That's all I can say. So I see what you're saying. So what I'm saying is, if you see a person walking down the street with pain in their face, and they've got like kind of, you can tell they're in pain as they're walking, and they're going, what do you feel? That's an experience that's got to touch you. That's got to touch anybody.
Well, unless you're a psychopath. If you're a psychopath, then you won't be touched by it. But of course, I talk about this, particularly when I'm on shrooms. You become very empathic, and so you feel their pain, and you have a certain realization that that's not too far away. for yourself. And so it's a self-reflection. And so you can see then that we're all the same, Paul, because when you look at an older person, you're looking at yourself. You're looking at yourself 10, 20 years down the road. Because if you live to be that long, then that's the chances are what you're going to be like. And so somehow our mind, it has some sort of innate ability to be able to have a certain empathy, but you can't have that empathy as a very young person. You have to have that empathy. You only start to get that empathy when you're an intermediary human being, when you know suffering, when you know pain, when you know what it feels like to get out of bed in the morning with a stiff hip, or joints with arthritis in. When you know a bit of that, then you can imagine the rest, because all that happens is you get more and more stricken with pain, and you become more and more incapacitated.
Yeah, well, living in the now and being in that moment and being in the universal energy field, like I was talking about last time off camera, whether you're in fourth or fifth dimension, you're not in the same dimension as these human beings that are residing there. So, like you said, you don't see the human being, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're not there, they're not feeling, they're not caring. The fact of the matter is, if you're experiencing this dimension higher, you're not resonating with them. But there becomes the paradox, because, like, if you think about it, if you're like a Buddha sat under a tree with a bowl of rice delivered to him every day, if it was all Buddhas sat under a tree with a bowl of rice delivered to us every day, where's the delivery men gone? There's no delivery man. There is some kind of it always seems to me like there's visionaries and non-visionaries.
Well, yeah, if you look at the human race, and we've spoken about this before, if you look at it as a whole, then you can see that every facet of it serves its purpose as a part of the whole. Because you need poverty if you're going to have wealth, because if you don't have one without the other, then you can't have one. How can you have wealth if you don't know poverty? And so therefore then, when you've got extremes of extreme poverty and extreme wealth, then you've got to have all the other stuff in between. And so if you've got like stupidity and great intelligence, then you've got to have all the other stuff in between. So if you've got a right side of the brain and a left side of the brain, then you've got to have something in between at the end of the day, haven't you? Or you've got to at least have a point where the two brains meet. And so what I'm saying is when we look at the whole world has a purpose, and its purpose is its oneness at the end of the day, as far as I can see. Its purpose is self-experience and self-expression, and it does it in a whole myriad of ways. And this is the beautiful thing. Now, there's something else that I'll just pick up on, as you mentioned about the consciousness, because I was listening to Mikhail Kaku tonight, and he's being interviewed, and it was like, what is consciousness? And Kaku said that he thinks there's 3 different varieties of consciousness. And he started to talk about the first level of consciousness or cognition, which is the reptilian facet of creatures, i.e. Creatures that just entirely act from instinct. And then you've got the second level.
Can I just pick up on that? We'll go through the other 2. This is where it gets a bit bizarre with me, because if, like we said before, if there was a small baby, and you didn't show it to put its hand to its mouth, is it running? What is an human baby at that level? Would it die straight away if we didn't feed it? Is it built into it?
Well, no, that's right. You see, with most animals, Paul, for instance, if a foal, when a foal is born, within 20 minutes it's standing up, and within 30 minutes it's walking, pretty good, which is incredible, isn't it? But the reason why they have to do that is because being born out into a field which is laden with predators, it's got to be upwardly mobile in an instant, because the human being is nurtured by a higher intelligence. The higher intelligence knows how to take it to shelter away from the other animals. It can climb a tree, it can go in a cave, it can build a house and do all this sort of thing. So therefore, the human being doesn't need to be able to fucking stand up and run through the bush within 30 minutes. And so it's because the human being is blessed with a higher level of cognition. See, we've got the 3 levels of cognition, whereby...
Yeah, go back to number two then,
Okay,
Kaku.
so the number two is the more intelligent variety of monkey. If you look at rhesus monkeys, then they're probably the most intelligent. They have got this level of cognition whereby they can feel hate, they can feel love, they can feel compassion, they can feel a sense of achievement, they can feel the sense of community, they can feel a sense of domination or being dominated. All these social cognitive things, they feel. But then when you go to the third state of consciousness or cognition, what the rhesus monkey doesn't have, it doesn't have any vision about next week or about next year or about what its son is going to grow up like.
Time and space.
Yeah, that's right. It can't step out of the now because it's always in the now. But the human being, it has the facility to project itself, its actual spirit, project it into a time when it envisions, like I did when I was on shrooms. I projected myself to an 82-year-old man, feeling all fucking hard done to and sorry for myself, but still vital and thankful for life, you know. And so we have this facility. Why do we have this facility? Because we're connected to it. We are all that, Paul, but we just don't realize it in certain states of consciousness. But I believe there is another state of consciousness. Mikhail Kaku, you see, he's constrained by his physics education. But if you was more spiritual, then you could say, well, there's a fourth level, there's a fifth level, and there's a sixth level. Because by the time you've experienced these different levels of what it is to be, out-of-body experiences, things like that, you know there's more states of cognition.
That is the Kabbalistic belief. There's 10 discs, and each disc is a different level. As in, I can go and simplify it. You've got, like, the first disc is kind of dreams, thoughts, and imagination. Then your second disc is willpower. Then you've got your spiritual work, Thelma, or whatever it's called. Then you've got your physical. So each part, the thought, then the kind of fermenting of the thought, then the willpower to drive the thought into the reality. But there's more to it. There's 10 of them. Yeah. So it's that. That's what it's telling you in that doctrine. So when you learn that, it's a fermentation of this. We've been given that amazing gift.
Have you got one video in particular which depicts this?
Yeah, I can get one.
Bang that over to me, because that sounds really interesting.
Because it's we've looked into the Kabbalistic thing before, and it went off on the God aspect. But there is other ones you can look at. So it's very, very, very complex, but not. It's understanding that it's been put into guidance, as if to say that each action as a reaction. Like we was looking into Zoroastrianism, and then was looking into the Mithras and things like that. Was talking about last. All them aspects. It's all about wiring it into this, wiring into this kind of amazing piece of art that we've been dropped into, because we are creators and we are artists of all different various aspects.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about the Kabbalah is that it's based on natural law. It's based on all of the math and geometry and the spirituality, everything. It takes everything into consideration when it's compiling its way that we should travel through this life. If you look at Zoroastrianism or Zarathustrianism, then that philosophy is based on three concepts, Paul. It's good deeds, good words, and good thoughts. If you've got good, your thinking's good, your speaking's good, and your action's good.
Each one's feeding the other, isn't it?
Yeah, and so therefore it gets back to this natural law again, that if you don't do any harm, and if you only speak good and think good, then you see the speaking. If you're only speaking good, then you can never affect anybody in an adverse way. If you are only thinking good, you can't affect yourself in an adverse way, because it's our internal dialogue that fucks most of us up. It ages us, it decapacitizes us, it diminishes our energies and powers and everything.
Exactly. And when you think about it, it's like you say, the understanding. It's knowing that you are what you are. It's like looking at this being that we are. There's how many people in a room of 100? Do you go to and look at yourself? What are you? And they'll go, well, I have to get back to you on that. I've got to read about this first. And you think it was the most important thing, and an educational system is to say to a kid when it's like 4, 5, 6, look at yourself. Do you understand what you are? You're this, you're that. The first fundamental aspects of the foundation of understanding how powerful you are, but it's missing. Like you said, out of the law system, it's missing.
Yeah, and it's kept in secrecy, and this is why that nothing was ever written down in this Kabbalah, really. And with alchemy, it's all in sigils and codes and stuff like this. Even if you look at the likes of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and all these sorts of people, probably not Socrates, because Socrates he died because he wasn't going to stop perverting the youth, which was the charge against him, you see. But
Sure.
Plato and Aristotle, they was of this belief that you don't throw pearls to swine, and you keep it all secret. And so all these, even Archimedes, he was from this school as well, you know. All these people, these great thinkers, like Isaac Newton, okay, so he published a few fucking papers, but he was deeply steeped in alchemy for all of his life, and he never spoke about that stuff.
I'll just read this to you because it's quite interesting. It's from the Greek times. It's taken me just a minute to read it, and it's very interesting. It's about power,
Right.
the will to power. Right. The more power man gathers through willful warping of reality, the less free he actually is to control the reality and wield the events to fit his desire. More and more, the destiny he constructed controls him. So what it's saying is, the more we want to gather and hold on to the reins of this reality, the more we go back to it the next day, the hotter the reins become, because it's an impossibility in context. You can only, like you said, control the here and now and give a percentage of the other aspects to the wants and needs of our future or past and thinking.
Yeah.
It's a very deep thing. I'll type it over and send it over to you.
Yeah. Do you think it means also that because there's a natural law in this universe, then if you try to pervert the powers, then it's all illusory? And even if
it's like a boomerang, it bends back round on you.
Yeah, that's right. Even if momentarily you think that you've got the handle, you've got people under you, you've got your army, you've got all the hierarchy, something is going to come around and bite you in the ass. And this has been proven to be so throughout millennia with the hierarchical system. They've all been fucking murdering each other because this is the nature of that beast. This snake comes round to fucking bite itself in the ass. And so if you fuck with the natural laws, then you're going to get fucked, and I'm a great believer in that, and so I know that whenever
you see a lot of people, if you went into some high octane job or businessman and held in this, he would literally push you out of the building because he's in that frame of mind. But once you understand it and know how it naturally works, it's nothing more powerful. Isn't that a paradox?
Yeah.
Once you know it's a law that's a natural law, you don't need it. But when you're in it, you need it. It's almost, again, it's bizarre.
Well, once you know how it is, it's a bit like if very, very rudimentary, but if you want to get from A to B, and A is upstream and you're next to a stream, and B you're downstream, then that river isn't going to be of any use to you. But if you discover that river actually goes round in a circle, and so if you go get in at point B and you float down, eventually it's going to take you up to the top. And this is what this natural law is like. It's like going with the flow, harnessing the flow, and believing in the flow, because it works in mysterious ways, and it doesn't always pay you the dividend that you expected when you're expecting it. It can give you something in 5 or 10 years' time or whatever.
Believe in the invisible, then the visible becomes visible.
Yeah.
It's the paradox again. It's understanding that the more you actually look into how all the mechanics of it works, the less it will work. It's not like pulling the clock apart again, laying it on a table. It's not going to click. It's not going to tell the time, is it?
No.
You just got to understand. Inside that unit is all the mechanism for time. But by breaking it down, there's no speed in the engine. I think Peaky said that, isn't there? If you break the engine down, there's no speed in there.
Yeah.
And that's these little things that, again, if you go back to the Greek times, they knew all this because they had time to sit there and ponder the human spirit. It's not changed now. It's exactly the same.
No, and this is the thing, you see. These independently wealthy philosophers, their independence and their wealth was their greatest asset, other than their intelligence, because they, from a very young age, that's all they used to do is to educate themselves. And then when they'd left a certain school, then they would be talking amongst themselves. And so they could sit and contemplate the world in a very, very tranquil mind. How many people, Paul, can get in any level of tranquil mind these days? We've got no idea, because we don't know what the mind was like. Most people don't. Say like 100 years ago, say 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, when you got very, very simple lives, stone buildings in little towns, and the whole sustenance of the whole community is farm produce, and so that's all you're doing. And so therefore, when you start contemplating the stars and the nature of the man and this, that and the other, you've got a pure and clear mind to do it in. But these days, people's minds are all perverted, and they are perverted on purpose. And so even who was it that was saying, I think it even might have been Mikio Kaku, saying something like, we see our educational system, it doesn't give rise to the thinking person, because you are told what to think, and you are told to replicate what we tell you. And so all you're doing is, what it actually does is, it just instills within you the propensity, which gets stronger and stronger and stronger, to please. And so that's all we ever want to do. We're just eager to please everybody. We're eager to please the society. We're eager to please the friends and family and all this sort of thing, because we want this level of acceptance. That's what it's all about. The human being has become a pathetic shadow of what it once was, because all it is hell-bent on doing now is finding acceptance.
Well, yeah, if you go back, like you say, thousands of years, what was the lifespan of a man? Was it 30, 40 years of age? Something like that, 50? Yeah. A normal, labouring man. So his actual thoughts would be from season to season, and the next generation. That's all you could probably think about, isn't it? It's nowadays, when we know we live to 70, 80, 90, we've been given all these years to ponder our existence, and lots of people are doing it. So we've got to say that it's an evolutionary thing, where more people are doing it, then that becomes the normal, doesn't it? We hope it becomes the normal.
Yeah, I don't know whether more people are doing it, though. This is the thing, because all the evidence suggests that less people are doing it, because more people are becoming dependent on what the computer is telling them. The simple thing, Paul, if I want to know what the fucking weather is, then I go and stand outside and look at the sky. And then I've got a pretty good idea of how it's going to be. But if I'm dependent solely on looking at the weather forecast and just believing that, and that's the only method of me discerning any reality about this world, then I'm going to lose the facility to be able to gauge it for myself, aren't I? And this is what society's done. We've lost the facility to be able to gauge the world ourselves without becoming completely dependent on other sources.
Well, yeah, because then you're actually using your own intuition, your own kind of momentum to do something, as opposed to one day we'll be driverless cars, we won't have to think where we drive, we'll just sit in some seat and it'll take us somewhere. Yeah. And then you'll go to that person, do you know where you've just been? They'll go, no, I'm not, I don't need to take it on board.
Exactly. is that when you don't have to be a responsible agent taking one car from A to B, you don't have to be here either. You could have your face in a phone, watching a movie, you could be reading a book, you could be doing anything. And like you say, you've got no idea where you've been during that time. And so what is actually happening is that your life is passing by and you've got no recollection from a point of A to B. And this is the great danger, you see, because in my life, because I've travelled so extensively, and I've always wanted to do this, Paul, because I've always wanted to go, what did I do last year? Where was I last year? Big landmarks in my life. Oh yes, 1982 I was here, 1983 I was there, 1984 I was there. But if you are in your phone throughout all those years, where were you?
Well, you're into the idolising of the electronics, aren't you? You've idolised you put all your will and intention into a system that's not in the reality.
Yeah, where were you as an entity?
You're not there.
You're not there.
You're pretty much cyborg. You're pretty much, in the word, way to cyborg. Are you recording this? I see you are.
Yeah, recording
this. So we'll say run it till about 10 to 8, mate. So I've got to watch them at 8 o'clock, so that's about an hour and 50 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's cool. So we've done an hour and 23 now. So yeah, we can. We've about wrapped this one up in any case. So probably another 5 minutes will do it. It's been very, very interesting, so it started with Attonement then, and so a human facet. And what I'm trying to do is encourage people to be and express their humanity. Have you gotten round to watching any of the videos on the new site yet?
I'm not in. Like I say, I tried to do it last night. I'm going to be in there this afternoon after I finish with you. I'll lock in there. I haven't got in there yet.
Because your name was
I haven't
there.
got the key in it yet.
Oh, you've not got the key in it? Oh, okay, because I saw that your name was there, and then the guy's been messing around with the site, and then it's actually gone again.
Yeah, when I was looking at it last night, that's what I'm saying to you, it was there, then it had gone. I was looking at it, I thought, hold on a minute, it's active. Because 1 minute all the thing was up and then I couldn't get into it, so I'll try again later. And then
I think he's probably taken you out somehow, because there's about 5 or 7 members missing, and so I think it's due to what he's been doing. He's reconfigured something.
I'll send him a text message then or something later.
Yeah.
Tomorrow he won't be back tonight.
So okay then, well. Yeah, we've done that other subject then, so we'll click off here and then we'll just have a quick chat then, yeah?
Yeah, okay, buddy. Yeah, okay, bye-bye.